Hello and welcome to another instalment of my Source Vintage YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me. This instalment is going to be all about a rather fascinating find. It's a piece of artwork, but I've been doing some research into it and I think I might have found a bit of a tenuous link with this piece of art and the Second Boer War. But we'll see. I'll explain what I found and you can decide for yourselves if you think it's what I think it is. So, without further ado, let's get down to business. So, a couple of weeks ago now, I found this piece of artwork. And interestingly, when you turn it around, it has been done on the back of a segment of cargo crate, and it's definitely got some age to it. It looks to be late 19th to early 20th century. There were a lot of elements to it that fascinated me, really. Firstly, how the picture's been done. It looks like it's been created using little cut-offs of different materials that the artist had to hand. Not only that, you've got it being done on a crate, a cargo crate, so again, using the resources that they had around them at the time. And the frame around the outside, beautifully carved, but quite naive at the same time, looks to have been hand done. So you're looking at an artist who's got skills in a few elements. Not only that, but it's the image itself. A lone church in the middle of a mountainous range, almost like it's a symbol of hope in perhaps a hard, difficult time. Now, I've owned a few pieces of trench art and prisoner of war art in my time, and this is exactly what entered my head when I discovered this item. As I've said, you know, the fact that it looks like they've used materials that were to hand, and it's done in a very sort of naive style. So what we have here, I think, is either a piece of folk art or it's a piece of prisoner of war art. So anyway, my research began with me working with the clues that I had to hand. And the most glaringly obvious one was the stamp on the back of the cargo crate. This reads produce of Travancore, India. So this is where I started my research. This is when I discovered that Travancore was a bit of a hub for trade in India throughout the 19th and early 20th century. Quite an important place. So there was a lot coming in, being created in Travancore and coming in via Bombay through to Travancore. Not only this, but my research was leading me to the Second Boer War. And whilst I knew bits about the Boer War, I didn't realise that India had taken part in the Second Boer War. So this led me to research the Second Boer War in a bit more detail and just find out what India's involvement was. During my research, I discovered some horrendous things. I've always known the heinous reasons behind Britain's decision to enter this war, particularly for a second time, but I'd not known in detail the severity of the brutality, horror, and sheer dirty tactics used by Britain to win this bloody battle. One particularly disturbing discovery was the fact that the British rounded up tens and thousands of civilians, particularly women, children and the elderly, and kept them what would now be called concentration camps. They were insanitary and the diet was very poor. Records suggest that more than 27,000 people died in these camps. However, very few men were detained in this manner, mainly because they were likely to be seen by the British as combatants. 28,000 were detained as prisoners of war, and almost all of them were shipped out of South Africa to prisoner of war camps spread out all over the world. Initially, they were held on the island of St. Helena. However, when that proved too small, they were sent to Bermuda, to Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, and to India. So with my paintings linked to Travancore, India, it was the camps in India that I decided to look more deeply into. And these camps, by the end of the war, had detained more than 9,000 prisoners of war. I studied each of these camps in detail to see if there are any possible links with my painting, i.e. similar terrain, nearest churches or places of worship, or links to Travancore. And this is when I found the camp at Kakul. This particular camp was situated in a very similar terrain as that in the painting. And this camp was situated about 5 kilometres northeast of Abbottabad. And quite spookily, it was in Abbottabad that I discovered St Luke's Church, which was built in 1864, and it looks very, very similar to the church in the painting. Obviously, I can't confirm this for sure, but look at these pictures and see for yourself the similarities, particularly with the steeple, bright red, and look at the shapes of the windows below. You have that long window at the top with the slightly oval top, with the round circular window directly below that. Some pictures suggest that the terrain around the church again looked quite similar to that in the painting, but obviously it's changed slightly over the years. I mean, you're talking 120 years ago. There's lots of trees there now by the looks of things, hiding the mountainous ranges, but just look at these similarities. Very strange. So I mean, this would have been only 5 kilometres from where the prisoner of war camp was in Kakul. So, I mean, according to recorded accounts, the Boer prisoners landed in Bombay and then travelled by train to Rawalpindi. From there, they travelled by camel and foot via some rest houses to Abbottabad. Apparently, the first prisoners to arrive at Abbottabad camped on the northern side of the town while the camp was being completed. This particular sentence from these records rings true to the painting, so just bear with me on this one, but it says, "The nights were cold and the men could see the snow-clad mountains in the distance." Now just look at the painting again, I'll put it up here. Look at the snow-clad mountains in the background. According to further records, the Kakul camp was one of the smallest and short-lived in India. Prisoners were initially housed in 8 rows of tents on what had been a ploughed field. As a result, it was not very level and they experienced some difficulty in keeping their belongings dry when it rained. There were 8 cooking huts and a wash house. Large wooden huts were then erected, which the prisoners then moved into. While they were still in their tents, there were 8 to 10 men per tent, and when the huts were built, there were 24 men to a hut. A high barbed wire fence surrounded the camp with elevated gunning towers. I found another blog post by Murig Jones called The Anglo-Boer War's Blogspot, and within one of his posts he's described one of the main pastimes of the Boer prisoners of war, and this was handicrafts. They would make anything from any materials that they could find, and these are highly collectible today. He went on to say that handicrafts from a lot of the bigger camps are quite common. However, from the smaller camps, they're not so common, particularly Kakul, because it was only housing prisoners for a few months. So there you have it. Is this a piece of prisoner of war art from the Kakul camp in India during the Second Boer War? Is the church in the painting St Luke's in Abbottabad? Or is this simply a piece of folk art, which is still very collectible? I know what I think, but I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. But this piece is available to buy on my website now, source-vintage.co.uk. So if you haven't checked it out, then please head over there now. I should also tell you that I write a weekly blog every Monday where I talk about the trade, interesting finds. I have the occasional interview with a celebrity antiques dealer off the TV. There's a few funny stories and experiences in there, and there's plenty of them, believe me. So check it out, subscribe, become a Source Social member. That gives you the weekly blog straight to your mailbox, my fortnightly YouTube videos. It gives you exclusive discounts and first dibs on all new items before they go live on the website. So subscribe to those, and if you've subscribed to my YouTube channel already, thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't, well, what are you waiting for? Hit that icon, subscribe. Anyway, until next time, thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I found it fascinating doing this research. This is why I absolutely adore this job. But until next time, take care, keep buying those antiques, and keep spreading that Source Vintage love.